Hey, it's Mark. Hey, let's go. Work to do. What? Did somebody dig you out of the sand at low tide? Hey, you know what? Close the books, pencils down. Why? I'm a history teacher, and I'm going rogue. Disneyland, man. The happiest place on earth. Space Mountain, Splash Mountain, Peter Pan, Thunder Mountain, my wife's favorite. My favorite? Hall of Presidents. History. For my daughter's 16th birthday, all she wanted to do was go to Disneyland. 5 people, 2 days. Cost us, carry the one, $1,000. Now my son's fiance wants to go there for their honeymoon. I say good call. So what makes Disneyland such a great family park? Attention to detail. Every so often, during his off hours at the Disney Studios, Walt Disney would take his young daughter across Interstate 5 to Griffith Park, where 2 things caught his attention. The first was the Railroad Museum, where Navin Johnson was an engineer. Jerk. Disney loved railroads so much that he had a miniature railroad installed in his own yard. The other attraction was the carousel, on which his daughter would spend hours riding while Walt sat back on a park bench enjoying the show. Then Walt had an epiphany. He decided to build his own park for families to enjoy, parents as much as children. His first idea was to build it on the property of the Disney Studios, but this was unworkable. So he found property for sale in Anaheim and decided to build there. Total cost? $17 million. Disney Studios saw a disaster ahead and wanted no part of the deal. So Walt cashed in his retirement and a few other investments. Another interested party was the American Broadcasting Corporation, which shipped in $5 million of its own money in exchange for a Sunday night broadcast from Disney updating the nation on the progress of Disneyland, which later became a regular program called The Wonderful World of Disney. Construction started on July 16, 1954, with Walt's promise to open the park in 1 year. Flash forward to July 17, 1955, opening day for Disneyland. Walt made a promise, and far be it from him to break a promise. Nevertheless, the park was not ready to go after a year and a day of construction. Workers there that day referred to it as Black Sunday. So what went wrong? Let's find out. Let's go rogue. The opening day of Disneyland was to be an invitation-only affair, with 15,000 tickets being allocated to special guests. Tickets were mailed out and only reserved for special guests, friends, family of employees, the press, and celebrities. Jerry Lewis, Debbie Reynolds, Sammy Davis Jr., Frank Sinatra. To further limit the size of the crowds, guests were to come in as part of 2 groups, one in the morning, one in the evening. Even in 1955, Disney could manage a crowd. Oh, no, they couldn't. It started on the Interstate 5 freeway, coming south from Los Angeles. Today, people in LA are used to sitting in stop-and-go traffic, taking 30 minutes to travel 5 miles. Not so much in 1955. The 5 was backed up for 7 miles approaching the Ball Avenue exit. Get used to it. With thousands of kids on the way, which, now with not fully developed bladders, the shoulder of the freeway became the world's longest urinal. Those that did manage to hold it until they got to the park used the parking lot instead. Yeah. Yes, there were only 15,000 tickets mailed out. But once the tickets were mailed out, hundreds of counterfeit tickets were made. Paraguay. Hey, Walt, did you think of publicizing the happiest place on earth once a week on Sunday every night for a year wouldn't create some interest? All in all, 28,000 people flooded the park. The people in the morning crowd that were supposed to leave at 12:30 didn't. Now, even a couple of entrepreneurs, when they saw how lax the security was at the park, sold use of their ladder for $5. Scale the wall, have a nice day. When the guests entered the park, they found it not entirely completed. Disney said 1 year, and by God, it was going to be 1 year. Construction crews worked round the clock to complete the task. But on the morning of July 17th, workers were still rushing to finish the job. The paint on many of the surfaces was still wet. Trees were still being planted. Weeds that were growing up along the banks of the storybook land canal boats, rather than pull them, Disney simply had his Imagineers place signs nearby with Latin-sounding names to impress the guests. Similarly, some of the rides were not yet finished. To the dismay of some children and their parents, Rocket to the Moon in Tomorrowland gave guests an opportunity to experience a trip that would be commonplace by 1986. But it was not ready for July 17, 1955. Peter Pan's Flight, Dumbo the Flying Elephant, and the 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea submarine adventure were open, but kept breaking down as Imagineers opened them up too soon. It was later discovered that the Frontierland Stagecoach was too top-heavy, and it was closed before it had a chance to tip over and injure guests. Autopia, which was supposed to teach children the rules of the road, had to close because 36 cars were destroyed by too aggressive drivers. And a tiger and a panther escaped a circus attraction and faced off in what some people called a furious death struggle on Main Street, USA. Compounding the issue of the park with just not being done was the intense heat of July 17, 1955. Southern California can get hot, especially inland, away from the beaches, where Anaheim is. As temperatures neared 100 degrees, the freshly laid asphalt of Main Street became a sticky tar. Many ladies complained of their heels and men of their shoes getting stuck in the pavement. Now, mix the heat and the crowd and throw in a plumber strike. There were plenty of drinking fountains and plenty of restrooms. The only problem was the amount of water that could be delivered to the park. The plumbers at the Disney construction site went on strike, so Disney had to make a choice: restrooms or drinking fountains. According to Dick Nunes, one-time chairman of Walt Disney Attractions, when he told Walt that he had to choose between the two, Disney replied, "Well, you know they could drink Coke or Pepsi, but they can't pee in the streets. Finish the restrooms." Yeah, but there was no Coke or Pepsi either. The park had only prepared concessions for the 15,000 guests with real tickets, not expecting forgeries and people climbing over the walls. Food and drink ran out in the morning, and there was no Coke or Pepsi or water for the rest of the day. Or churros, or what do they have besides churros? No Coke or Pepsi or churros, or, oh, the drink that they have. Casey, what's that drink that they make?
I don't know. I've never been to Disneyland.
You've never been to Disneyland?
Disneyland.
Oh, poor girl. That's a bummer. Where were we? Speaking of overcrowding, one of Walt's favorite attractions was the Mark Twain riverboat. That, to this day, plies the rivers of America. Walt almost lost that boat on opening day. When 500 people tried to cram onto the attraction, well over its capacity, it listed to one side, ran out of its track and sank into the mud of the riverbed. A ride operator recalled that it took about 20 to 30 minutes to get it fixed and back on the rail, and it came chugging in. As soon as it pulled up into the landing, all the people rushed to this one side to get off, and the boat tipped into the water again. So they all had to wade through the water. Some of them were pretty mad. I'm sure some swore never to come back to Disneyland. Can you imagine that? I'm never going back to that crap hole. But it didn't end there with the Mark Twain riverboat. Again, the park, not completed, a gas leak broke out near Sleeping Beauty's castle, prompting the closure of Fantasyland for a few hours, to the sadness of thousands of children. A spark nearby caught the castle on fire. Flames could be seen trying to engulf the structure. Maintenance got the fire out and the leak repaired, and Fantasyland was opened again, giving these photographs of children sprinting into the iconic castle. Never mind that Peter Pan and Dumbo weren't operated, that the Storybook Canal was overrun with weeds. Once inside Fantasyland, kids were met by a frightening version of Mickey Mouse. Disney didn't plan on having costumed characters playing Mickey and Minnie and Donald. That's not an oversight. When the idea was proposed, it was too late to find a company to make costumes, so they borrowed costumes from the Disney on Ice traveling ice skating show. Those costumes were meant to be seen from the mezzanine level, not up close, and were designed for skaters to see in all directions, leaving huge holes in their face. I'm guessing some children had nightmares for the next few weeks. And remember the $5 million that ABC gave Disney to broadcast the Sunday night updates of the progress made by Disneyland? Well, you're not going to spend a year pumping it up and then not show the final product. ABC had a special live 90-minute broadcast on opening day, hosted by Walt and Hollywood stars like Art Linkletter, Bob Cummings, and Ronnie, not yet to be president for 25 years, Reagan. 70 million people tuned in to get a glimpse of the happiest place on earth. And although it hid the issues described previously, the broadcast was even plagued with issues as well. Guests tripped over cords laid out all over the park. It was live TV, riddled miscues, bloopers, hot mics, and unexpected moments caught on camera, like Bob Cummings making out with one of the dancers before going on air. Walt was well aware of the problem that plagued his namesake park on day one. He promised to get things straightened out, and rolling in a few months, and boy did he. The asphalt cured, the paint dried, the water got turned on. They put that stupid rail between the tires of the cars on Autopia. Dumbo and Peter Pan got their lives together. People started lining up at 2 o'clock the next morning to enter the park on its first day open to the public. 50,000 people entered the park on the next day. Within 6 weeks, the park saw its 1 millionth visitor. In recent years, Disneyland has attracted nearly 20 million visitors in a year, making it the second most visited park in the world. Second only to Magic Kingdom at Walt Disney World, which was inspired by the park that had so many struggles on its opening day. Black Sunday, July 17, 1955. Hey, thanks for stopping by. I hope you had fun. I hope you learned something. If I did it right, you did both. Hit that like button if you did. I'd be honored if you would subscribe. We talk history through pop culture, through sports, through weird historical occurrences. I had fun, but I don't quit my day job. Hey, the next time you're at Disneyland and you see the Mark Twain steamboat sinking into the mud or Sleeping Beauty's catchel catching fire, think of me. I'm Mark Haggard. I'm a history teacher. And I'm going rogue. Dream and you will find deep inside of your imagination